Welcome to Bracket U, a college basketball bracket podcast brought to you by us at Delphi Bracketology. We're in our 11th year of doing bracketology work, and this is episode 6, 7, something like that. I lost track. But we're a couple weeks away from Selection Sunday, and we like to share with you either live here if you're tuning in live or listening on audio podcast to help you get a better understanding of what's happening possibly with the seeding of your teams in the NCAA bracket. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsona. I'm here with Josh Reynolds and Caleb Hosier, two of the finest men at Delphi Community School, definitely in our bracketology club. They do a good job helping all of us get the right picks. But before we get into our discussion this evening, we want to give a special thanks to our Delphi administration for their support of the club. Caleb gotten ability to go to the Big Ten tournament because our principal has signed off on it. We really appreciate that. To Bob Thompson for our music, to Bryson Hutzel for our video compilation at the beginning, and to my buddy Jared Morris of the Back Home Network for all his guidance and inspiration in starting up podcasts. We thank him very much. Josh, Caleb, it's we start conference tournaments here on March 2nd, coming up with the ASUN tournament, which will determine the automatic qualifiers. We have a lot to discuss coming up, but let's just start with the one seeds. Caleb, I'll come to you. We have Auburn, we have Duke, we have Houston, who has moved up, and we have Alabama. Is that the right order, or should Alabama be ahead of Houston? Or what are your thoughts on our one seeds?
I like all of it except for just the Bama below Houston. I think they should be above them.
And why is that?
Just overall strength of schedule, and they've got 10 quad one wins, which is, I think, the most besides Auburn and Oregon, or maybe Oregon has 9. All right.
Yeah, we may have moved them up one position, but Houston's definitely a one seed. Josh, do you think Alabama has played a really tough schedule and won most of those games? They overcome a 2-game losing streak here with a couple nice wins. Do we have the one seed line right?
I think for now we do. We should watch what Houston's does because they're one of the hottest teams in the country right now, and I genuinely think if they win 1 or 2 more games, they could go over Duke. But I think it depends on how the Duke and Alabama play.
Yeah, and the thing about Alabama is every game's tough in the SEC, which is either going to be good or maybe hurt you just slightly. The key to getting the 3rd spot is probably going to Indianapolis. I think the South is going to go to Auburn. Then the East is going to go to Duke, more likely. If you get up in that 3 seed line, then Houston or Alabama will go to Indianapolis. The other will get farmed out to San Francisco for the Sweet 16. All right, time for our 2 seeds, and I think these teams are the only teams left that possibly can get up to a 1 seed line if a Houston or Alabama should falter. Specifically, the top 2, we have Tennessee, Florida. Michigan State is our 3rd, number 2, and Wisconsin. Josh, we'll start with you. Which one of Tennessee, Florida, Michigan State has the best chance of moving up and taking a 1 seed away from someone who is currently there?
I think right now it's definitely Tennessee, 9 quad one wins, while Florida only has 5. But I would watch out for when Michigan State plays Wisconsin Sunday, I believe, because if Michigan State or Wisconsin blows the other one out, they could move up a lot.
Caleb, our 2 seed lines loaded with a couple Big Ten teams. Michigan State has overcome a bad loss to Indiana at home and then just been a juggernaut. They hit a miracle shot the other night to add to their quad victory, a 3-quarter shot. But, the final score is a final score. What do you think about our 2 seed line?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's going to be important just to look at how the year goes because Michigan State's got to play Wisconsin and Michigan to end the year, even though both those are at home, so it's a little more favorable.
It's going to be interesting with that schedule. I think Michigan State's relatively safe for the 2 seed line. I guess if they lose both of those and lose early in the tournament, you might be able to see them fall to the 3 seed line. But at 23-5, I'm pretty impressed with what Michigan State has done. And now we get to some teams, a couple teams that have lost recently, a Kentucky team that has really some good wins in our 3 seed line, Iowa State, Kentucky, Texas A&M, and St. John's. I think the decision we have to make, fellas, here, Caleb, coming back to you, has Texas A&M fallen even further with some of their losses or are their body of work still holding up in the 3 seed line? and we moved St. John's up to the 3 seed line. So those two teams, I think, are most questionable. Your thoughts about those two teams? Are they in the right spot?
I think the only thing that's really hurt Texas A&M is that they're in the SEC and they have to play insane teams every game because their 3-game losing streak is at Mississippi State, then playing Tennessee and Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt's one of those teams where they're off and on constantly. They can be one of the best teams in the country or just not show up. So just they've got a hard schedule to finish out with, so just watch them. Yes.
Yeah, I'm worried about A&M. I think they could potentially be a 4 seed. As I'm looking at it, I think St. John's belongs there. Arizona, Texas Tech has lost some games. Purdue has lost some games on the 4 seed line. So I think they're safe for this week and this moment, but they need to end that losing streak. Josh, your thoughts? St. John's a good team to have on that 3 seed line, or should they still be a 4?
I think they are just because of their net and the fact that they're 7-2 in away games. But the 3 and 4 in quad 1 scares me when Arizona's 7-8 and Texas Tech, who we have their next 2 in the quad 4 or in the 4 seeds, are 7-8 and 5-4. But I think for now they've been winning so much they deserve to be there.
Yeah, they're winning the Big East quite handily, and definitely a 4 seed for St. John's. But we think that they're continuing winning and winning the Big East. If they win the conference outright and then they win it in the tournament, I think you'll see them get that boost from where they were in the reveal, which they were a 4 seed in the reveal. So our last protected seed, which are the top 4 seeds, we'll reveal next, and that is Arizona, Texas Tech, Michigan, who is now currently losing by 2 to Rutgers late in the first half on Thursday night, and the Purdue Boilermakers. We had a decision tonight, Caleb, or today, about Purdue, either the last 4 or the first 5, and we took a vote, and it was somewhat close, but Purdue won out, and they're on the 4 seed line. Why should Purdue be on that 4 seed line right now, or do you think they should drop?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of how they've been playing right now, so I wouldn't say bias, but I'm very negative towards them right now. And although they probably should stay where they are right now, and I don't want to use my feelings against them right now and say that they should be any lower.
As a Purdue fan, you get a little angry, right? I'm that way with Indiana. I don't know that I look at Indiana fairly in my observations. But, Josh, Purdue and Missouri's really making a push with some nice wins. Does Purdue hold on to the 4 seed line for now? They play UCLA tomorrow. We kind of talked about what might happen win or lose tomorrow with Purdue. You want to share?
Yeah, Purdue definitely stays up right now, in my opinion. Yes, they may be playing bad and they're lower in the net, but their strength of schedule is so much harder. And even though they're playing bad right now, you have to look back what they did November, December, because those games count as well. They have 14 quad 1 and 2 wins, while Missouri only has 9. I believe if they do lose to UCLA, there's a chance that they fall. I'm not sure that they will. But if they beat UCLA, I think they solidify themselves as a 4 seed.
Man, whoever trained you guys is really good because you bring up a lot of good comments. Body of work. You're going to hear that from real, true bracketologists. Body of work. And our listeners, be careful of the TV commentators. This team looks like a NCAA tournament team, or this team's won 2 in a row. If they get to 20, they're definitely in. It amazes me, and I love the sport, and I really have appreciation for announcers, but they really don't know bracketology at all. And I think they either don't know or they're told to kind of pump up conferences or teams or whatever, and they're all for the sensational comments on the game. But you have to have 68 teams. And the body of work, as Josh said so well, November counts, December counts. It's not just the last 2 or 3 games. And when it comes conference tournament, you'll hear it all a lot. This team needs this win to get in, and it's really 1/32 of a schedule. So you're listening to Delphi Bracketology. Bracket you as the season wraps up. We are going straight down our seed list with some decisions and some issues that we talked about today in our scrubbing meeting. We'll have a bracket out tomorrow. Things change a big Purdue UCLA game tomorrow, and then a big slate of games on Saturday that always changes things up. But let's go to our next seed line here. And if you're listening live, I see a few people are in here. If you do, throw a question or a comment in the chat. We'll be glad to try to answer it. Caleb and Josh know just as much as I do, so we'll try to help you answer those questions. But our 5 seeds right now, Missouri, and then we had a couple teams that we had a lot lower, St. Mary's, Oregon, and Clemson. Coming back to you, Josh, St. Mary's and Oregon, some people have them in the 7 range, 8 range. We like them at the 5, but we debated them today. Your thoughts on those two teams? Are they deserving of a 5, or are we too high on those teams at this moment?
I think both of them are definitely deserving. St. Mary's because their net is 16. They're 4-2 in quad 1, and they're 8-1 away in away games. And their outside conference strength of schedule, it's not really that bad at 92 compared to some of the teams like Maryland at 322. And then with Oregon, they have 9 quad 1 wins, top 5 in the entire country. Even though their net is 32, I do believe they deserve this spot for now.
There have been history of teams getting at 30, getting 4 seeds and 5 seeds. Indiana a few years ago was a 30 in the net and had some quality wins and got a 4 seed. I think Miami in that same year was in the 30s. So that net doesn't disqualify them, and it's obviously not a ranking order there. So yeah, their quality of wins, and both of those teams were kind of hanging around for a while, but they've really won. St. Mary's has beaten Gonzaga twice. I think you're going to see these teams in the 5 or 6 range. We have them in the 5. That might be a little high. I know we don't check a lot of other bracketologists' work, but a couple of the key people we do check, they have them at the 7. But we believe what we do. We think they're going to be a little bit higher than that. Caleb, any thoughts on St. Mary's, Oregon, or any of those teams on the 5 seed line?
I still like Oregon, although they had a 5-game losing streak, which was tough because 4 of those 5 games were on the road, and they had to play both teams in Michigan. They had to play at UCLA, and that's a really tough stretch. Then they won at Wisconsin Saturday, so
big comeback.
Ending in the right way. They got USC and Indiana at home, then at Washington that ended out. So those aren't really going to boost them up too much, but wins aren't bad.
13-8 in the quad 1 and 2 with 9 quad 1 wins, as Josh said. 6-4 on the road, 20 overall strength of schedule, 64 non-conference. Their predictive metrics, we haven't mentioned those yet. The WAB and the resume metrics. They have Oregon sitting pretty good. As I'm looking for them now, they have them 14th. Average of 14 in the wins above bubble metric that is new, and 15 if you average all of those metrics out. Clemson's the other team that we have on the 5 seed line that you could see a little bit lower in maybe the bracket matrix or other places. But again, they are 4-2 and 7-2 in quad 2. They're either a 5 or a 6. This 5 or 6 range is kind of tight. You can go any way you want to go with that. We have 6 seeds of Maryland, Louisville, Kansas, and Marquette. In Kansas and Marquette, you have 2 brand names, 2 teams that were in our top 4 seeds for a while, but have had some hard times in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Kind of straightened it out with a few wins lately, but we think they sit right there on that 6 seed line. Any of these 4 teams can make it maybe up to the 5 seed line. Caleb, if you were a betting person, probably shouldn't talk about that with high school kids, but if you were to wager a Diet Coke or something, which team of Maryland, Louisville, Kansas, Marquette is going to make a push and move up to the 5 seed line?
I'm just going to pull up Louisville right now because I think it might be Louisville just because being in the ACC. Yep, I would pick Louisville. They have 3 home games left against Pittsburgh, California, and Stanford. So assuming that the other teams are going to lose that, even though we like to look at body of work, I feel like ending with 3 home games and they shouldn't drop those. I feel like if I was a betting man, I would put money on them.
You wonder, guys, how the tournament committee is going to look at the ACC, because if you win a lot of games in the ACC, it's not really good teams. It's not really, the competition isn't as good as the SEC and the Big Ten. Does that hurt a Louisville, even though they have good record and some wins? Does that strength of schedule keep them at the 6th seed line? I'm really impressed with what Coach Kelsey has done there at Louisville. Josh, which team here do you think is poised? Does a Kansas Marquette regain some of their steam and move back up, or is it some of the other two teams?
I do believe the most likely is Louisville, just because of what Caleb said with the teams non-conference. Even though they are in the ACC, their non-conference strength of schedule is still a 31 in the country, and they're 9-2 away. But I do believe, looking at the rest of Marquette's schedule, I think they could make a push and move up, but they have to win out to do that.
Yeah, I think both those teams need a good winning streak, Kansas and Marquette, and then they've had some wins previous to their losing. So we have a question, fellas, and it's really on the bubble, which we will get to eventually. But since we have someone live who asked a question, Tawny Moore asked, do you think Ohio State will make the tournament even though they're struggling? I'm going to turn to you, Josh. You're a resident Buckeye. You're an Ohio State fan. We talked about them today in our scrubbing meeting, and what did we say they had to do in order to have a chance of getting in the tournament?
I believe they do have to win out, beat Nebraska at home, and then they have to beat Indiana at Indiana because Indiana is another bubble team. And then I think they have to make a push in the playoffs, at least make it to the semifinals, if not further.
Yeah, I don't know if they have to get that far. That's the only way I would disagree with you. They have to win their last two games. I think, they're 16-13. You have 14 regular season losses if you split those two, and then you lose in the Big Ten tournament. Even in the semifinals or the championship, that's 15 losses. I think at some point, even though you have really good wins, their 6 quad one wins is really, really good and is enough to get them in the tournament if they get 2 or 3 more wins. I think 2 or 3 more wins is key for your Ohio State Buckeyes, Tawny. Beat Nebraska, beat Indiana on the road, win the first game of the tournament. That puts you at 19-13. You lose the next one, 19-14. Michigan State got in at 19-14 as a 9 seed last year with similar resume numbers, maybe not even as good of wins as Ohio State. Ohio State, if you just look at the quad wins, they should be in, and we might even move them in until those games are played. But they're just 3 games over 500. And we normally don't put a team in that is there. We still have Baylor in that situation, and that's a team we'll talk about here later on as we go. So, great question, and just happened to be we have an Ohio State fan on the panel for us who does a really good job. 7 seeds are some teams too that we kind of like a couple, and then we just feel a couple are hanging on. UCLA, Memphis, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. Josh, you were talking about UCLA. We talked about their big game tomorrow. What happens if UCLA pulls the upset in Mackey Arena tomorrow?
If UCLA beats Purdue, they're 8-7 in quad one. Their net will go up, and I believe they will definitely jump Marquette, maybe even Kansas, move up to a 5 seed or 6 seed. My bad.
Caleb, does UCLA move up with the win tomorrow night against Purdue?
Yeah, I agree with everything Josh said right there. I think that they should jump Marquette and Kansas and maybe look at them in Louisville possibly. Just because that'll be a pretty good win to add.
If UCLA wins, they go 8-7, 5-0. That's 13-7 in the quads 1 and 2. We may have them too low right now. They do have a quad 3 loss. They're only 4-4 on the road when Louisville's 9-2 on the road. You might want to dig into, they've beaten Oregon twice, I believe, on the road against Indiana, which is now a bubble team, tournament team. So UCLA may be in. I do think some people might have UCLA on the 6th seed line and a Louisville or a Kansas on the 7th seed line, but we're definitely looking there. Memphis is always a team that is really tough because they have a 48 net, which is a predictive metric. They have a 3rd toughest non-conference schedule. The American Conference doesn't offer much resistance for them. They're 5-2, 5-1 in the 2 quads. We believe they will land in the 7 seed line because of their net ranking, maybe a 6. Mississippi State and Ole Miss have played some good basketball and have some numbers, but they've lost a few games here, and they hover around that 7 seed line. Moving to the 8 seeds, we have Illinois, Utah State, a BYU team who is flying up the seed line, and Creighton, who is in the Big East. Caleb, what team stands out here that you want to talk about on our 8 seed line?
probably want to look towards Illinois just because the troubles that they've had lately, especially against Duke, which I don't know if they're missing anyone in that game, which you'd probably know
They've
that.
had sickness all. They've had about a bad month of injury and sickness where they haven't had guys in practice and they've had mismatched lineups. I think they have another guy broke his wrist, a big center guy, so they haven't been full all year long. They're as close to being full as possible. So yeah, but Duke just mishandled them. I mean, just manhandled them. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think Illinois is a really good team when they're whole, and if they can win a couple games and get their team back, they'll be a team that's seeded 8th or 9th or 7th and have some upset capabilities. They got to play at Michigan and then home against Purdue. That's just brutal. I think you're going to see Illinois at the 8-9 seed line if we were predicting. We have them as an 8 right now. Josh, you want to talk about Illinois, or is there anyone else on this 8 seed line that you'd like to discuss?
I'm looking at BYU and Utah State. I do think BYU would move up, and they're really hot right now, but due to their religion, as many people know, I think they'll end up being a 10 seed. And then I look at Utah State, and what really stands out is that they're positive in the quad one, and they're 7-3 in away games, which is huge compared to the rest of the country.
And before we're judging BYU's religion, they don't play on Friday and Sunday is what Josh means. And so they have to be in regions where you play Thursday, Saturday on the first weekend, and if they happen to win, then you have to be in a Thursday, Saturday regional. And the 8-9 seed line, there's only like one possibility depending on who gets those 1 seeds and where their pods are. And what happens with the committee is they will move BYU down. They won't move them up and hurt another team. If BYU's an 8 seed but needs to be in a better pod, they can't be a 9 because 8 and 9s go to the same spot. So that's why Josh says because of their religion. It's not that we're anti anything there. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Where BYU will be seated does depend on how we can bracket them on who they play and in what cities they play. The 9 seed guys it's got Gonzaga, and it's got the 2-time defending champs UConn, and then we moved Vanderbilt up, which is I think a big jump. I don't know that I was ready to move Vanderbilt up to the 9, but they go on the road and beat Texas A&M, a 3 seed. They are now 4-8. In quad 1, 4-1, 8-9 in the first 2 quads. And when you get down here where these teams are bubble-ish teams, I think Vanderbilt has a pretty strong resume to be on that 9 seed line. I probably would, I don't know, maybe have them at the top 10, but I think our committee did a good job in analyzing that and moving them up. Caleb, going back to you, how hard is it for us to put Gonzaga in the right spot? We have them as a top 9. They have an 8 net. Your thoughts on Gonzaga?
I hate them. That's my least favorite team to look at on this entire spreadsheet because they've played, I don't want to say nobody, but they played St. Mary's, which was I'd say maybe one of 4 shots at getting a good win since conference play started, and they lost by 4 at St. Mary's, so it's not that bad, but they just haven't really done anything since conference play started. So I don't like them at all.
It's tough because the resume says they should be one of the last teams in, but the net and the predictive say they're a top 2 or 3 seed team, and so it's got to be somewhere in the middle. You split the difference. You put them at a 8-9. It'll be interesting to see where the committee lands with this kind of discrepancy. I don't know that I've ever seen that in 11 years that we've done it, having one metric be so high and the other one being so low, or one good and one bad metric. And then there's really nothing in the quads to really support the 8 net for Gonzaga. I have a feeling Gonzaga's in the tournament. We're going to miss them by more than 1 seed, which eliminates a point in our scoring system in our tournament. Josh, 9 seeds. You want to talk Gonzaga, or do you want to talk somebody else?
I take Gonzaga. The only reason they're this high is because the committee loves them. But I'm looking at UConn right now. I know they haven't done what they did the last 2 years, obviously defending champs, but I definitely think if they win their last 3 and make a push in their conference, I think they could definitely move up.
Yeah, I think maybe the ceiling for UConn is a 7 if some some sevens falter. If Ole Miss and Mississippi State kind of lose a couple and Connecticut makes a little bit of run in the tournament, they could possibly get to a 7. They're 4-5 in quad 1, 5-3 in quad 2, above 500 in those two quads, 6-4 on the road. Good strength of schedule numbers. We may have Connecticut a little too low. Now their metrics, their wins above bubble has them low too. So in this new metric and they're adding metrics, we wonder how much influence that has on the committee. But you're listening again to Delphi Bracketology's Bracket U podcast, where we're going through our seed list with Caleb and Josh and I as we talk about what our committee discussed today in school and how we see the seed list. And now, if you're listening live, we've seen people bounce in and out. We appreciate that so much. We like sharing information, and we're not the committee, so. I know you get mad at us if we don't have your favorite team on a certain seed line, but we just like to share information of what's happening and get a hold of us on Twitter or the X at Delphi Brackets if you want to ask us anything as well. But you can put something here in the chat in the last 5 or 10 minutes here of the show. If you want to know our opinion on something, we'll be glad to figure it out. But everyone is interested in the bubble. And the bubble for us is the 10 seeds, the 11 seeds, the last 10 teams that are, or the last 9 teams that are in our bracket, and the teams that are just out. So our 10 seeds right now: San Diego State, West Virginia, Baylor, and Oklahoma. Baylor, I'm not sure they're a 10 seed. They might be a lot lower at 15 and 12. Scheduled strong, but don't have a lot on their plate. Oklahoma and Baylor both have lost a lot on the road. Josh, coming back to you, what kind of decisions are we going to make on Baylor and Oklahoma? Should they be lower?
I don't know. I think Baylor should be lower, and I think Baylor and Oklahoma should both be lower. But then you look at quad 1 and other metrics, and they're both Baylor's 5-10, Oklahoma's 5-9, and the teams we have below them are VCU, who's 1-1, Nebraska, who's 5-9, who I think would be the best argument to move over them, and the other teams have 4, 3, and 1 wins in quad 1. So.
I'm with you. If we move a team up here, it's going to be Nebraska. If we move Baylor down, I think Nebraska to the 10 seed line. But they've been hot and cold. They had a 6-game losing streak as well. Have bounced back a little bit from that. I think Nebraska's okay. They're going to have to win. They play Ohio State, right? Is it coming up? There's a key game for Ohio State. You beat a team that's on this bubble. Maybe you move up and ahead of them. Caleb, our 10 seed line, Baylor and Oklahoma, we don't like them, but the trouble is if you don't like someone, you got to replace them. And I'm not sure, Caleb, we like anyone who's below those guys either.
Yeah, I just want to point out something with Oklahoma real quick is if they win out their last 3 games, that's 3 quad 1 games that they can add to their resume, which that'll bump them up to 8 and 9 in quad 1 because they have to play at Ole Miss, home against Missouri, and at Texas, which looking at all their nets, all 3 of those would be quad 1 wins, and that could really help them maybe move up a seed line from where they're at right now, but the net still scares me a little.
I tell you what, Caleb, Oklahoma's resume metrics are really good for a team here at the bubble. They average out at 43, but the wins above bubble, which we think might carry a little bit more weight, has them at 37 on that 10 seed range. Their predictive metrics, not so much. So, yeah, Oklahoma's on this bubble. And the thing is, man, they lost an opportunity the other night in losing to Kentucky. They had to lead with under 10 seconds to go, and Kentucky scores, and then Kentucky holds a last-ditch effort. That would have been huge. I almost could have locked Oklahoma in if they would have beaten a top 3 seed in Kentucky. I do think they have a good number of wins, and so the 10 seed line is a lot safer than the 11 seed line. But I think we're too high on Baylor. I think tomorrow, Josh, in history class, if you're done early with your work, we might need to take a look at Baylor and make an adjustment on Baylor. I think they're on the struggle bus. They should definitely be on the 11 seed line, and I'd probably be willing to make the flip. I may even make it after the show. Nebraska for Baylor, move Oklahoma up 1, Baylor to the second 11 seed line. Still not in Dayton in the first 4, but that looks like a good decision. And then the last few teams in, we had Nebraska, we talked about them, but our last four, Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, and ungodly, don't like this, North Carolina as our last team in with only one quad one win, 1-10. The teams we have out are Xavier, Ohio State, Texas, SMU, and Boise State, who's on the rise. I think Ohio State probably should be in over North Carolina. But again, these teams got to win. I think tonight I really might make that change just for the number of wins. But Caleb, coming back to you, take a team and say why they should be in, and then we'll come back to you and take a team and why they should be out, and then you got to have a team to replace them with, just to kind of demonstrate what we do in our meetings. So I'll start it off. I think Arkansas is the safest team right now, and they're not safe. But of the four teams to date, and I think they are 4-9, 2-2, so 6-11 in the first two quads, 10-11 in quads 1 through 3. If they can even that out or go over 500 in quads 1, 2, and 3, I think they're really safe. They have a net of 40, which is better than everyone except Georgia, 3-5 on the road. Arkansas would be my team that is safe. Caleb, what team is the most safe for you of Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, North Carolina?
I might have to go with Arkansas as well, but I don't feel safe about any of those teams staying right there. I feel like all of them have a good shot at not being in. Looking at the teams behind them that aren't in yet, they have shots to get quad one wins and boost up past them, because North Carolina's only got one quad one win, which I don't like them in at all right now. But
Bubba Cunningham, AD of North Carolina, is the chairman. I'm going to keep trumpeting that as my wild card. Like, there's no reason for North Carolina to be in my opinion. I'm with you. No reason. But when he leaves the room so people can talk about North Carolina, that they work with this guy for several years. If it comes down to that team or one other team, it shouldn't come down to that. But you wonder if, like, okay, it's tight, it's close. They have a great strength. They have enough positives. Their metrics are acceptable. They have a strong non-conference schedule. They only have one loss outside of quad one. They've played good teams and scheduled good teams. They just haven't beat them. I'm just worried that they're going to get a little preferential treatment. And we've missed, I'll tell this every podcast probably until we're done, Delphi Bracketology has missed on an ACC team the last 3 years. Notre Dame didn't have good numbers. They got in 2023 or 22. Then it was North Carolina State in 2023 we missed. We had out, and we had Virginia out last year, and Virginia got in, and all of them had 2, 1, and 2 quad one wins. And I don't think they had as good a record as North Carolina. And so you wonder if they don't want to just leave the ACC with 3 teams, and they're looking for that 4th or 5th team. I know that's not in the criteria, and every team's an independent, but you just wonder when the chairman and a couple big voices on the committee are there for that conference, that they're really championing that conference. Josh, which team do you think's most safe of our 4 teams that are in?
I'm going to say Georgia. I know they have one less quad one win and one more quad 2 win, but their 3 quad 1 wins are against St. John's at home by 3, at Kentucky 82-69. They beat Kentucky by a lot, and then finally their last game at number 3 Florida, they won by 5.
Yeah, Georgia, it has the best resume metrics of this group, too, as an average of 30 of 41, which puts them at the top of this 11 seed line. The wins against Bubble, which if it has more influence, is a 36. That's a 9 seed. Their predictive metrics, the net plus Ken Pom and Bart Torvik, their average is 38.3. So they're in that 9, 10, 11 range. These other Bubble teams don't quite have that. With them. The road record is the one that really hurts Georgia in that situation. Paul Smith, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. I believe you're a big VCU fan. He says VCU could have 2 or 3 quad 1 wins by next week. 29 net, 29 KPI, and 28 Bart Torvik. Paul, I am a Ram at heart. I have a VCU flag from a great VCU fan, sent me some swag a couple years ago. We have it up in the Delphi Bracketology War Room. If we were in the committee, VCU would be in whether they win the tournament or not, just like Indiana State would have been in. But our job, Paul, is to try to predict what the committee does, and sometimes they overlook these smaller conferences. The A-10 is pretty good. They overlook these teams like VCU and Indiana State. Oh, Paul, that was you. I'm sorry if I forgot that. I or either that or your Twitter name wasn't attached, or I'm just old as crap. That's it. Paul, thank you very much. I love all the VCU stuff. So now I feel like a jerk not remembering that, but I'm old. Please forgive me. Josh, we're coming back to you. You got to get rid of a team and you got to replace a team. What would you do?
I don't know. I really don't, because I want to put in Ohio State for North Carolina, like you were saying, but I'm an Ohio State fan, and I just don't feel right doing them with them being 3 wins above 500. So I'd probably right now put Texas in over North Carolina.
Oh, boo.
But I think if Ohio State wins out, then they're in. But the bottom teams in this bubble are so bad this year.
Ohio State has the record. Like, if you don't look at 16 and 13, Ohio State's got to be in, right? Ohio State is 6-9 and 3-4 in the 2 quads. So they're 9 and 13. They're underwater there. They're 10 and 13. Yeah, but they scheduled strong, 37 non-conference, 13 overall, 4-6 on the road. We don't have to put them in because they're 16 and 13 and they have to win 2 games. So one more loss. The only loss they need to take is in the Big Ten tournament. Another regular season loss, and I think they're doomed. I just think they're better than North Carolina right now. So I'll make that argument for you, since you're being nice and trying not to be biased with your Ohio State Buckeyes. Caleb, got to throw a team out and got to put a team in. Who would you advocate for?
Get North Carolina out and keep them away from the tournament. Then get Ohio State in there. I don't want to see North Carolina near the tournament.
All right. I am going to make that change right now as we speak. I'm going to our bracket, and I'm going to make our spreadsheet, and we sort it out. I'm now making that an official change here while we're live on the show. We have just made a decision, and one of the things that I do like about sharing this is we don't always agree. And I think that's kind of representative of the committee, that they don't always agree. And then it comes down to a vote and who has the winning votes at the time. And I think that's also good for our students to understand that when you're working with the group, you make your argument and then you live with what the outcome is. Like I said, the group wanted Vanderbilt up on the 9. I was hesitant on that. I've looked at it. I kind of like Vanderbilt being on that 9 seed line. So our last call question, I'm going to go to each of you because you participated in stuff outside of our school day. I'll go to you first, Josh. You had the chance to be on our TV show in the studios, ISC Sports. Share with our listeners a little bit about what it was like to be on studio with the headset on for our show on Tuesday.
I mean, it was honestly unreal. I don't know what my face was when I first got in there, but I was just kind of in awe the whole time because the room was it was so bright and it just felt right in there. And just the thought of me being able to entertain people by what I'm saying and doing every day, I really like the thought of that.
That's awesome. We had a really good show as we did. Josh was on this live stream last week and this week, and I think he does a really outstanding job. And Caleb, when we come to you, you've had a chance to be media member in Assembly Hall for the first time. Unfortunately, your Boilermakers got beat. You've been photography at football and basketball. You'll be on the court tomorrow, correct? Are you going tomorrow for Purdue UCLA as a photographer? And we just got word that you will be going to the Big Ten tourney as a photographer, as a high school student photographer, and your principal is going to approve 2 excused absences for all day Thursday and Friday. We need to make sure we write him a thank you note for that. But share what it's meant here this senior year for you to be a part of Delphi Bracketology and the experiences that you've had.
Oh, I love it. Just photography, I feel like, has changed my entire life now. I only wanted it to be able to get in the free games, and now I won't think about that being a job from now on, and hoping to, if any Purdue people are listening that work there, to get me onto the media team, because that'd be awesome. Because I saw that like their main photographer is going to the Panthers now, so
Very good. We're proud of both of you, and for the opportunities that you have. Josh will be back with us next year. Caleb, you'll be moving on to bigger and better things. And so, you know, this has been quite the show. We've had some religious talk about BYU from Josh. I have forgotten the name of the guy who sent me all the good stuff from VCU. Paul, thank you for your comments tonight and your support of us over the years. And go VCU. So that was my blunder. And now Caleb is just job searching online using this free media here to try to push his resume to the Purdue people. It's been quite a show, and this is why this old man likes to hang out with these young guys and gals. We had a young lady go with us on the TV show and take pictures for our yearbook. It is one of the best things that has happened to this educator because of being around people like Josh and Caleb. Lots of great games. We're not going to go over them tonight. It's time these guys go to bed so Josh doesn't sleep through history tomorrow in my exciting civil rights lecture in my class. And so they need to get to bed. We need to call it a night. But thank you for listening here. If you're listening on the podcast, again, ask us questions about your team. We won't always be right, but we'll try to give you the most honest evaluation that we can. We'll be back again. I think we have another show next week, and then that might be it because the next Thursday, Steve Painter, myself, and Caleb will be down in Indianapolis at the Big Ten tournament. So we'll have one more live stream, and then it's the time to make our final brackets. But that's going to do it for our show tonight. Thanks again to Josh and Caleb for joining us. Thank you for Tawny, Paul, your comments in the chat. We appreciate that. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Make sure you check out DelphiBracketology.com for bracket work, seed list, podcast, the photography, the photo albums that Caleb puts together on Delphi Bracketology, on the X at Delphi Brackets. We'll start, again, putting out information on a nightly basis. And we do have a donation page. I got to feed these guys, and we got to put them in Delphi Bracketology stuff when they go to the Big Ten tournament, and we pay for internet fees and all that stuff. So if you feel that you're there, or join Paul and send us your favorite swag, just a banner, something that we could put up to represent all the great schools, that we cover. We're not bashful. We'll take anything at all, and we'll toast the pizza and the wings here in the next couple big meetings that we have. So again, for Caleb, for Josh, I'm Coach Tonsoni. We'll see you next week.